Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Ingerman, and we welcome you to the Shaman's Cave.
And I'm Renee Baribeau, and it is a pleasure to be here with you all today.
So, as I've been sharing, we oftentimes get suggestions for topics. And one of the things that I'm always known for is my work of transfiguration and teaching people how to become divine beings of light, that we already are divine beings of light. I just like to help people access that. When I first started teaching my Medicine for the Earth workshops, and we would do these amazing transfiguration ceremonies, I found that if I didn't acknowledge the shadow, something would always come in. So I'll turn it over to Renee, who has not had a chance to say hello yet. And I know Renee has so much to share about this topic.
Yeah, I've got so much shadow. I have lots to share. you know, one of one of the things about the wind work or my work is that I've always been a rooter, like a rotor rooter. You know, I keep thinking, okay, this time we're gonna go easy. At the end of the 10-month apprenticeship program last year, I'm there like, okay, we're gonna get to 10 months, we're gonna have a celebration, and then the winds come in and they're like, oh well, yeah, but you haven't done the death despacho yet, and which is more like letting go of baggage. And so I think that the reason that I wrote Winds of Spirit was because I must be carrying this weighted bag of shadow shit, from lifetimes that I just have to keep opening the and transmuting, because it's just seems to be a non-ending source of delight in the work that I teach, is helping people uncover the shadow work so that they can be beacons of light. And maybe it's because there was so much darkness and so much depression and so much that I overcame personally in my life, that was part of the plot. That was part of the plan, was like, yeah, the more you can remove through, the lighter you're going to be, and the more you're going to help to be able to be that flashlight for others. And that could be all ego. I really don't know, but I've done that seems to be where I specialize.
Well, it's important to honor the shadow because we are nature beings. And the shadow is part of nature. The sun comes up and the sun goes down. I think for myself, I've done really interesting journeys, and you can try this if you're a journeyer. You can try this on your own. In my workshops, I've asked people to just go and ask the simple question: what is the nature of the shadow? Period.
Mm.
You don't have to understand the question. You don't have to relate to the question. Just ask it. And then we go around the room after the journey, and I ask people to stick to one phrase or one sentence. And it's amazing, the joy, the happiness, the shadow. Everybody gets that the shadow is beautiful. It's just nature. The
Mm.
sun goes up and the sun goes down. It's just simply a part of nature.
Mm.
And in 20 years of teaching medicine for the earth, I have never heard a person bring back a negative description of the shadow. But we project a negative
Mm.
description on the shadow because we're a little bit disconnected from nature. We get a little bit frightened of what the shadow might mean in our life. What is it going to bring into our life? Is it going to be more suffering? And it's just a part of life, simply just a part of life.
Mm. Yeah, the suffering probably has its own shadow. I mean, if you think about it, like every aspect of the like talking about the sun coming up over the trees, and what does it do? It casts a shadow, that you can actually walk through. and then you can see that the shadow of yourself in with the tree. And really, I mean, when you look at it that way, that sounds like, oh, oh yeah, I'm part of this sun and shadow in this tree as well. What a great way of looking at that. I like that, Sandra. That's really nice.
Yeah, and what I found, and I found this a really bad experience, is that when you're really focusing on the light, and when you're focusing your work on more transcendent states of consciousness, if you don't at least acknowledge the shadow, just acknowledge it, just name it, it will chase you down.
Mm-hmm.
It will chase you down. And I've seen this over and over and over again. And so it's really important for us as we do our work. Doing shadow work is not my specialty, it's Renee's specialty. But I did, I've learned in 20 years that if I don't acknowledge the shadow, something really, really big and traumatic is going to come up. And if I just say at the end of the ceremony, and we also thank the shadow for its importance in our life, or something like that, it leaves us alone. It got acknowledged, it got seen. And so, something shifts from that. So I don't know, Renee, if you have like things like how do we work with the shadow or acknowledge the shadow inside of us?
For me, it's about befriending those aspects of yourself. And I think one access point in that I speak about in and is the resentment, the things that we refeel. So recently there was this resentment that I kept refeeling and refeeling, and the lighter and the more evolved, if there's such a thing, that you become, there may be bigger issues, because instead of just working with your family on a one-to-one basis, you might be having a whole group, and you can probably talk to this better, looking back at you, reflecting back all of those, those open little wounds that you have, or those little scabs that get torn off and stuff like that. But that I find the shadow is the gift of resistance. And it's always a place of that resistance, where that if you think of a weather vane, a weathercock on top of the roof, that it's the resistance of the wind against, the resistance of this metal against the wind that makes it spin. So if you look at these little parts of yourself, these little blemishes, or, they might even be glowing gold nuggets. I mean, I remember in AA, there was a woman who, when you get to step 6, you make a list of all your defects, and then you get to decide which ones you want to keep. And there was one, well, I need this. There was one that this woman said, I really need this one because it's what makes me a good realtor. Good, keep it. Nobody's saying that you can't have these parts of yourself that, those hardened parts of yourself, or those soft parts of yourself that might show up shadowy sometimes, because they may be the driving force of your greatness as well. And but remember that on the peacock, the weathercock up on the roof, that it's that resistance that puts it to the direction that the wind's blowing. So I really see these shadow parts of myself as giving me the insight of what I need to look at now. I don't have to make a big deal of it. Oh, well, that's interesting that's coming up now. Huh. And clear it in the moment. And then so it doesn't become a big festering wound that's going to send 100 people packing.
Yeah, and I think we're so afraid oftentimes of the shadow that we'll do anything to run away for it or deny it. But as Renee's saying, if you can go inside and do some of that inner work, you find that it's actually not the big monster that we turn it into.
Mm.
And we're seeing a lot of shadow right now, a lot of shadow right now. And it's bringing imbalance. It's bringing imbalance because where we are, we need to understand, we need to evolve to the power of emanating love and light.
Mm-hmm.
We really need to evolve there. I know a lot of us are doing that already and have made that a regular practice. And trust me, that's changing what's happening, whether we understand it or not.
Mm.
But there are also other parts of us. When you, in shamanism, where we're living now is called the middle world, which is Earth School. It's where humans learn about Earth School. And once you're ready to leave Earth School, you go into a transcendent reality where there's only oneness and there's only the creative forces of the universe. And that doesn't have those different states. We're not nature beings anymore. We're spirits. We've left the world of nature. But in nature, you have to acknowledge that you're a nature being and that the shadow is going to be part of our life and that we're in Earth School and that we chose to be here now. We might have been a little crazy in our choices, but we chose to be here right now to get the Earth School lessons that we're all getting right now of how does everything be torn apart, and how does everything be rebuilt again? And we are builders of we're starting to build that new consciousness. But as long as we're here on Earth, we have to acknowledge the darker sides of life.
Mm. It's funny, as you were talking about this, I was seeing the last 2,500 years as a cycle. And that right now, this time period we're in is we're living in the shadow of that cycle. That whole cycle of experience has now cast a shadow that's become like this is just crazy as it might sound, has created this whole shadow of itself that we're having to walk through to be back in the sunlight of the next evolutionary time that we're moving into. And I told Sandra before we got on here, I said, I'm downloading this book and I'm typing it faster than the words can come. But it's really about moving into the next evolution of ourselves as humanity. And hopefully we keep the humanity part of our souls as we move forward. But that we're really in a big shadowy period. And so, how do we find our way to the light in this darkness is probably a really good piece of work to think about for yourselves. Maybe not all today, but with a good teacher or a good group, or the next time Sandra teaches a course, or my apprenticeship program next year. But we need the support of other people who understand this time.
Yeah, and as Renee's writing a book, I'm co-writing a book on the dark night of the soul, which is how to walk through the darkness and then how to get to the light. And basically, how we're writing the book is not as a research book on the dark night of the soul, because there's so much of that already out there. It's on our own personal journeys through the dark night of the soul and how we personally were able to walk through it, and how we fell off the path, how we got back on the path, and all of that. And it is an extremely intense time. I did teach a course on a 9-week course on the dark night of the soul, and I found myself having to change the exercises because I felt like a lot of people hadn't approached this topic yet, and we're in it right now. And one of the biggest keys, and I've shared this many times on our shows, is everything is step by step. Don't look forward, don't look back. Take it second by second. Just take the next step. I've shared that many times. The only way out is through. We're not going to escape. You can't escape the shadow. The only way out is through. Mm. And so you walk step by step, and one of the thoughts that I've had, and I love that Renee's writing this new book, is that the dark night of the shadow has always been a solo journey, because you have to be able to have enough fire in your spirit, because your spirit is who gets you through. And if you look at what's happening in human consciousness right now, people are forming communities to walk through the dark night together. And so that's a huge shift in consciousness. That's a huge shift in consciousness that usually isn't talked that much about. And so finding friends, finding community, finding anything that inspires you, that will let you go to some of those deeper dark spaces, do your ceremony work, pray a lot, and take it really second by second. I'm one of those. I'm one of those people of the slower you go, the faster you end up.
And I guess this would be a good place to interject, since we're in December, is that over at the Wind Clan, we do a ceremony every December that starts at the solstice, where we gather people from around the world to hold a candle or a battery-operated light or a fire for 14 days. And it's an opportunity for you to go deeper with yourself, because you're not holding the light yourself. There's a whole group of people around the world holding this light. So on a day when you need extra support, you don't have to hold up you don't have to be Midas. You don't have to hold up the whole world. And so you can join us over at the iamsymposium.com. And Sandra will be doing she'll be doing the opening ceremony, which she's going to call in the directions, which I'm very, very excited about this year. So thank you. And I just want to say one thing, Sandra. Every time when I've been writing lately, and I'm there like, okay, well, how do you do that? And I start to do a little research. The winds will like slam the door shut and say, no, we want to hear how you do it. Right. We want to know how you got through it. We want to know what your experience was of it. And I thought, like, and I want to give you those people who are home writing a book or teaching a class. We always want to go to the experts to find out, like, how is it done? Well, you know what our individual medicine is that we have our own unique way of doing it. And so what is your unique way of doing this? Share with us. I mean, what you're comfortable sharing with us is like, how do you move in this, on the Facebook or the YouTube or wherever it is or send an email to the Shaman's Cave, wherever you feel most comfortable. Tell us, so we can maybe compile a list of tools and tricks to get through the darker days of the winter that are coming up for us in the Northern Hemisphere, and definitely in the Southern Hemisphere. And I can see that Sandra has something very important to say, because all of a sudden there was like, I don't know, there must be one more message you have to say, Sandra.
Well, I thought that you did an absolutely brilliant job, so I was just listening. But
I saw one of your guides like come in. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, but well, I always have something to say. I get on these summit presentations, and I don't even let people ask me questions. I'm talking for an hour, and at the end, people just say, "Whoa," and it's not an appropriate thing to say. Of don't be afraid of the shadow, because the human part of us really is. And so we shouldn't judge ourselves. We shouldn't say, well, we're higher beings and we shouldn't judge ourselves. We should baby ourselves right now. That's one of the tools that we can use. And when states of hate and resentment come up and fear and anxiety come up, just as Renee said on the last show, just stop and take a moment and tune in to yourself and listen to what your intuition and spirit are saying, because don't sit down in the dark. Do not sit down in the dark. I can tell you it is so hard to get up once you do that. So even if you have to take the simplest baby step and think about the beauty of a rose, just to get that next step, just do it. Just take that next step and don't sit down, because sitting down is where you get frozen. And then it takes so much energy, too much heat to get you back up. So, that's really what I found in my own life is was one of the first journeys I ever had in my life was my power animal coming to me and saying, no matter what happens, never sit down in the dark.
Wow. I knew there was something profound that was needing to be said. I could feel it. I could see it. It was crazy. The veils are getting very thin out there, so really enjoy yourself and enjoy this time of being able to go through timelines and thin veils and don't be afraid, and like Sandra said, don't sit down in the dark.
Yeah. So, and we're all in this together. We're all in this together. And the lessons that we're getting, if you would just let yourself move your mind out of the way for a minute, the lessons we are getting are so exquisite. And Renee will be writing about that and talking about how to move forward, because this is the time of some of the most beautiful learnings that are coming through, because what the shadow is doing is breaking our hard shell that we have put on our bodies. And it's allowing us to start to move into that next human phase of evolution. So thank you, Renee, for the work that you're doing. And I really appreciate the work that everybody's doing right now. We're all contributing to the web of life and to life itself. So thank you.
And thank you, Sandra, for getting us here. I mean, you have been a pioneer in all of this and moving us to this place where we were even able to access this. I'm internally, I'm very, very grateful for getting to spend this time with such a wise woman, and all of you at home too who listen to us. So make sure you follow us over at shamanstv.com. Sign up for our mailing list. Go over to the Facebook group, the Shamans Cave, and also on YouTube, and we answer emails. So all of these places, we are here with you. You're not alone in this. And thank you very much.
Blessings, everyone. And thank you, Renee.